Okay, so we're going to do exercise 1, which is the very first exercise that we do using Adobe Photoshop. So first you need to go get the folder that has all the pictures that we're going to use in the exercise, and those are located in the Handouts folder. Yours looks a little different than mine, but if you hover over the folders down on the right side of your dock, you'll see one that says Handouts. So go there and open it up. Handouts is a file where I give you stuff and the file's set up so that you cannot save inside of it. So because of that, it's important that you always move any of the files you're going to be using to your own desktop. If you try to save here, it's going to tell you don't have permission. So the easy way to accomplish that is just grab the entire folder and drag it to your desktop. And so in this case, exercise 1, 2, and 3, that's what we're going to be working on in the next few days. I'm going to drag that over and drop it, and I already have it here. I don't really even need to replace it, I'll just say don't. But just have it on your desktop. Next, we're going to go and we're going to open up Photoshop. And so I'm going to go ahead and just launch it. It's down here, it's the blue PS. Now one thing to know about Photoshop on a Mac is that it shows you the desktop. You can click in and out of it. If you click to the desktop, Photoshop will appear to go away, but you can go back and click the icon and it'll bring it back. It's already open, it's just running in the background. And the way you know that that is true is by looking at the little lights that are on the dock. So right now this app is running, it's just hidden. So to bring it back, I just need to click. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do actually though is open up that file on my desktop. So I'm going to go over to it, exercise 1, 2, and 3, and I want to use the lake file first. Now if you simply double click and it's a JPEG or a GIF, any kind of file other than a .psd, it's not going to open in Photoshop by default. It's going to open up in Preview. So don't do that, and let me show you what it looks like. So this is open in Preview. Notice its Preview is active on my menu bar across the top. So I can't really work with it in this. I can't drag it or move it or change it. It's just going to be, it's nice to view here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close Preview, quit, and instead of double clicking, I'm going to drag the file into the Photoshop icon. And there we go. Now it's open in Photoshop, and I know that because it says Photoshop over in the menu bar, and then it's also giving me all of the nice panels that I'm used to seeing. Let's minimize that for now. Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to clean up my desktop because I kind of moved it around a little bit. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to go to Window and Workspace and Reset Essentials. That way mine's going to look like yours. I also have a preference set, and I'm going to change it for right now, and then I'll show you guys, we'll kind of play with it and you can kind of determine what you want to set yours at. This is the default, that documents open as tabs. Alright, so looking at Photoshop, we've got across the top here our menu bar. We have this little shortcut bar that has some nice little options. We're not going to be using Bridge, I don't believe, or Mini Bridge, but it has some nice extras like showing your guides, your grid, and your rulers. You can see that I have guides and rulers showing, and the rulers are right along the outside of this document showing me how big it is. So I know that it's a little bigger than 4 inches and wide, and it's a little bit taller than 3. I can zoom in and out from here. I can arrange documents on my desktop using a few different patterns, and I can go into various screen modes. And the one screen mode I wanted to show you was the full screen mode with menu bar. This is one that can be really nice if you're working and you want to see what your colors look like on a neutral background. The best way to view the true color is to view it on this exact shade of gray. So that's why they've chosen this one, because it just doesn't lead to eye strain and it just allows your eye to perceive colors more accurately. Now, when you don't have it on, when you're in standard screen mode, you're going to have whatever colors that are on the desktop, and they're going to possibly influence your vision, in terms of how you see the colors. Because colors, when they're set side by side, optically will appear, differently than when they're by themselves. Now the downfall of having that gray, though, is that it's not quite as easy to get to your desktop. So I would say for most of the time you're probably going to be wanting to work in the standard screen mode that lets you get to your desktop. But some of the time you might want to switch into the full screen when you want to really just get a look at what your colors are looking like and make sure that you like them. Oops, come back. Okay, so the toolbar lives over here, and it is a bar that has all the tools. It has some tools that hide under other tools, and to see if you see a little kind of a black mark, it's like a little corner mark, that means that there's other tools that live under the tools you're looking at. So if you hold down with your mouse for a moment, those tools will pop up, and then you can go ahead and choose various ones. And quite a lot of the tools have other tools. They're all kind of stacked on top of each other. Now when I demo, I'm always going to have the menu bar set so that it's side by side as opposed to one long single row. And to do that, to toggle back and forth, you go up to the top arrows on the right side. The reason I liked using it like this is because I feel like it's a little bit easier to see where I am in relation to the various tools. And then I can also say third tool down on the right, fourth tool down on the left, and it's easier to navigate as opposed to have me sit and try to count all the tools to tell you where to go. So set your toolbar, at least for now, so that it's like this, so that it's easier for you to follow me. Now one thing to notice as you click on various tools, check out this little bar. This is the options bar. And as I click, notice that that bar changes. So it gives me little shortcuts to the tool options where I can adjust those tools. Over on this side is our control panel, and there's lots of different panels that do all kinds of different things. There's different panel setups that are located here, and we have the Essentials panel, which is the one we'll probably use most of the time. We have the Design panel, which gives you swatches, and still all of these are going to have layers because layers are really important. The nice thing about Design is it has your colors, and then it also has all of your type up so that you can work with fonts easily. Style, or wrong spot, Painting has all of your brushes and your colors showing. So we might bot back and forth depending on what we're doing. Now these are all new to me. I'm used to CS3, which set things up in a different way. So I'm going to be learning them along with you guys, and we'll probably have our favorites. One thing you can do too is you can set up a custom little workspace if you want to, and opening all the things you like the most, and then you can save that. And to do that, that's over here under Window and Workspace. So you could go in and you could save your own. If you mess up your files, and let me kind of just purposely throw some things out of whack, you can quickly put them back by going to Window and going to Workspace and choosing Reset. And that's going to throw everything back to its norm. Alright, so working in Essentials for now. The main two panels that we're going to be using are this one, which is our history panel, and this one, which is our layer panel. And those are the ones we're going to focus on today. We might actually play around with adjustments possibly too, or that might be the next demo. So we want to take this lake and we're going to add one of our photographs to it right now. So I'm going to click back to the desktop and I'm going to open that exercise 1, 2, 3 folder. The file we're going to add first is the Ducky TIFF. I'm going to take that and I'm going to drag that into Photoshop to open it. Now, the default settings are to tab any pictures that you open. So let me just open something else just to kind of show you that. Any new thing I open, notice it's tabbing them. So I can go back and forth to the various ones, right? If I want to move the duck into the lake, I'm going to have to separate them. So I'm just going to pull apart. If I wanted to put a hat on the duck, I would separate. And now I have them as 3. Now, I personally like the old school way of these not being tabbed, of when you open something, it's just flying open on its own. And one of the reasons is because even though you can separate them, they're still all going to be the original size of the background picture that you're working with. And then you have to kind of move, and adjust to get them to be small again. So to me, that's an extra step. So what I like is to set the preference so that, and you guys can do this along with me if you want, it's Photoshop, Preferences. I'm going to go to Interface. And I'm going to turn off the Open Documents as tabs. I think it's a great feature if you're a photographer and you're just, maybe editing the pictures by changing colors and things, but you're not doing graphic design work where you're really combining lots of images. So for my purposes, and probably for your purposes too, you're going to want that to be unclicked. And what that means now, when I go to open something, it's going to open separately. So I don't have to, mess with sizing and pulling tabs. Okay, so we're going to take and we're going to move the duck into the lake. And go ahead and just for now, click open your little history panel and let's check out what it has. Because right now, we've got in our history, our ducky picture was opened for this one. If I click here, then I see lake picture was opened. On both of these, when you look, there's only one layer, and that's because there's only one piece of artwork. As I start dragging artwork in, you're going to see that it changes a bit. For both of these, it'll change. So first thing I'm going to do is move the duck into the lake. Now right now, I happen to be on the paint bucket tool. I don't want that. I want the move tool. So I'm going to click it. And then I'm going to click on the duck so it's active. And I'm going to just drag it and drop it into the lake. From there now, I'm going to check these out. So my history panel, notice it has open, drag layer, and then I had moved this duck, so it showed a move. There's another move. So each thing you do in your history is going to come below the last thing you did. And, say I moved it and I didn't really want to, I want to go back in time, all I need to do is click the upper one. If I wanted to go back to before I brought the duck in, I would click, and that would be before, or I can go back. But now if I go back, as soon as I do something new, it's going to erase the 3 that were below. So be aware of that. You can go back in time, but it'll erase anything you did in between the time that you're leaving and the time that you're going back to. So let me go back. Now, history will keep about maybe 25, 26 different history states. And So it'll keep them for quite a while. But if you're doing something like, imagine that we're painting on the duck and you use a lot of little brush strokes, so you go, brush, 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 it might be really easy for you to fill up that history. And once you fill it, there's no way to go back. It won't have saved the earlier little brush strokes that you made. So in that case, if you know you're going to be doing a lot of little movements that are going to fill up your history, you might want to copy whatever you're working with, so that in case you mess it up, you don't have to start over. Another thing to notice is our layer panel, and the layer panel is going to show all of the artwork. So right now I have a photograph of a lake, and then I have my photograph of my rubber duck, and notice that the newest artwork is on the top. So anything new that you bring in is always going to go to the top. With the history panel, anything new that you do is going to go down to the bottom. So they're opposite of each other. Alright, so I've got my duck. Now if I want to mess with my lake at all, I could always turn off the little layer visibility eyeball here so that I can see my lake. Duck is still here, it's just hidden right now. I can also unlock this layer, and what that's going to allow me to do is move it if I wanted to, or if I wanted to cut things out, it would let me do that. If I don't unlock it, it's not going to really work that well, so always unlock that background layer if you're going to make changes to it. I'm going to go ahead and double click. That's the way I unlock, and then I could name this lake. I don't have to though, I could just leave it as layer 0, and then I'm going to say OK. And now we have lake, and then we have duck. If I wanted to label my ducks, I could do that too. All I do is click, and you kind of have to click once. Let's see if I get it to work. As new version is touchy. There we go. So now I can go in and I can name him Duck. So when it's really obvious like this, the pictures are big, it might not matter to label it, but if you start to have lots of really tiny things, labeling can be a really good thing to do, because that way you'll know, you won't have to just click through all your layers to search. One thing you can do with layers is drag them around so that one thing is on top of another. So right now my lake is on top of my duck. Not really what I want, but it is possible to do. Alright, so I'm going to copy my duck. I'm going to have about 5 ducks. And to do that, first thing I'm going to do is drag the duck into the little layer copy icon right here. So now I don't see anything, that anything has changed here, but when I look over into my layers, notice I have 2 ducks. They just happen to be right on top of each other right now. That's why we can't see them. So if I move one of the ducks, then I'm going to see both of them. Now the default on your move tool is that this little auto select is not checked. It's like that. And when you have this unchecked, basically if you want to move various layers, you have to select them manually over here. So if I wanted to move the lake, I'd have to go and click it, and then I could move it. Or if I wanted to move this duck, I would go and click, and then I could move it. Okay, that works, but it's harder. It's a lot easier to have auto select clicked. And that way, each time I click on an image, it's going to automatically go there. Notice if you watch, when you click on the various items, it's automatically selecting. So I'd say 99% of the time you're probably going to want to work with that feature clicked. It's going to make it easier for you. The times when you might not is if you're working with transparencies. If you have an image lower than 50% transparent, and you try to grab, it's going to grab the background. Another reason you might want to turn it off is if you're working with really small writing and you're trying to move it around, often you'll end up grabbing the background instead of what you're trying to move. So that's another reason you might want to turn it off. But I would say generally have this on. Alright, so I'm going to work with 6 different ducks, and I'm going to transform them down. A transform command is located under Edit. It's here. And I'm going to want to go to Free Transform, which the shortcut is your Command key and the letter T. So you can click it this way, or imagine now I'm taking my keyboard, my hand, and I'm going Command T, and that's going to give that to me also. Now when you size anything down at all, I always want you to avoid warping it. Warped images don't look very professional. They tend to look like, more amateur, and we want our work to look really slick and really nice. So that's probably one of the most important things you can learn in this class, I think, is to always work with really nice, clean images that are not warped. So to do that, I'm going to grab from the corner always, never from the side. I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and since I'm right-handed, I've got my right hand on the mouse. I'm going to use my left hand, and I'm going to hold the Shift on the left side of the keyboard, not the right. It's just going to be more comfortable. And then this way, when I shrink this little guy, his height and his width are shrinking at the same ratio. So he's staying in perfect proportion. Now once I get him sized to a size that I like, then I'm going to click this check mark to complete the transformation, or if I messed up, I'm going to click this one to do it again. Another way to complete the transformation is to double click inside the box, just not right in the middle for some reason. So click outside of it, but inside the box. So click, and now that has completed my first transformation. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this guy now. I'm going to Option drag, and then I'm going to do my shortcut for transformation, and the long way, remember, is Edit, Free Transform, or Command T. I'm not going to do this, right? Even if you hold Shift down, if you grab from the side, it's going to warp, and that will affect your grade. If your images look warped and messed up, your work is not going to look as good. So don't do this. So I'm going to say no, go back, and now once again Command T, grab from the corner, hold Shift, size down. Alright, one thing I want you guys to avoid doing is sizing down and then deciding, now I want this to be big. If I did that, I'm going to do another Command T. After I've made it small and I stretch it big, look what happens. Notice how now that image is kind of fuzzed out. It's lost its crisp detail, and it just doesn't look very good. It looks really, kind of pixelated and blurry. It's impossible to take a tiny image and make it big and make it look good with any kind of photographic image, because they're made up of little pixels. And I'm going to zoom in on this so you can see them. So there's all the pixels there. Let's go to where we can see some color. So, those pixels, is when you shrink them down, you lose the pixels, and when you bring it back up, the computer invents them, but they're not really the true image. They are kind of an approximation of what the image should look like. So just avoid doing that. Always go to the original large image if you need to make something bigger. And then always try to get nice big images so that you're not, having to try to make things look big and look bad. Alright, so I'm going to keep going and For this part of this demo, we're simply sizing our ducks so that we get more than one. We want 6, and they're various sizes. I'll have one bigger duck. And then, you know, as if you want to go kind of with the rules of perspective, as things are farther away, they of course get smaller. They get less bright too. Maybe on the next demo we'll actually do some color adjusting to get these to really look believable. You might want to try out overlapping. So like right now my big duck is below this little duck. I'm going to move this duck down just by dragging the layer order. And overlapping is also going to give that feeling of depth. Option drag, easy way to copy. Command T, fast way to size. Always hold shift. Double click, quick way to finish your transformation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need one more duck. Now, remember the other way to copy would be to, and let's go with this duck, is to drag the layer into the little layer copy icon. And now I've got my other duck. Just remember when you do that, it's always going to be exactly, you know, directly under the one you just copied. Let's make this little guy small too. Okay, so we are not finished. Don't turn this in yet. We're still going to do more on the next demo. But that's it for now. All we need to do is save it properly. It's called Lake right now. We want it to be named last name, first name, EX1. So File, Save As, and name it. Don't use commas. You can use spaces. EX1, short for exercise. You can save it as long as the folder is on your desktop. You could save it there, or you could set it to desktop and save it there. Now I'm actually going to call this period 2, and you know, that way I have it. I'm going to go ahead and save it. You guys don't need to put that in, okay? Because when you turn it in, it goes into the period 2 drop box. I'm simply keeping this so that when I go to demo tomorrow, I have the file for the right class. And it already exists. Oh, so I guess I had that one already. We'll go ahead and replace it. Okay, so I'm all done, ready to go.